3, and
President Obama today commemorating Veterans Day a few hours ago by laying a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery. The president honoring those who served and sacrificed their lives for our country. First Lady Michelle Obama and Vice President Joe Biden also attending this emotional ceremony, as it always is. The president promising that the sacrifice of those veterans will never be forgotten.
There's a risk that the devoted service of our veterans could fade from the forefront of our minds, that we might turn to other things. But part of the reason we're here today is to pledge that we will never forget the profound sacrifices that are made in our name.
The president also paid tribute to the nation's oldest living veteran. He's 107 years old. His name, Richard Overton. And as President Obama noted today, there always are also thousands of heroes who never made it back from war, and their stories often go untold. Well, the World War II massacre of 11 members of an all-black unit at the hands of Nazi soldiers is one of those stories. The little-known war atrocity took place in a small Belgian town near the German border during the famous Battle of the Bulge in 1944. Now, towards the end of the war, this took place. The 11 men were brutally tortured and murdered after attempting to surrender to German soldiers. For years, no one knew the full story of what really happened to those Americans, not even their families, who'd been told they died in battle. But one Belgian man who'd witnessed the events as a young boy, he was only 12 years old at the time, he made it his life's mission to let the truth be known and have their stories told. And joining me now, former U.S. Surgeon General Regina Benjamin. Regina's uncle Buddy was one of the members of the same battalion that was captured during the Battle of the Bulge. He was eventually liberated by Allied forces. Also with us, military reporter Jim Michaels, who tells this story in a new article in the USA Today. Jim, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
It's an incredible article, and I wish I could copy it and pass it out. And I'd tell people to go online and read it as well. You talk about nearly 70 years later, on another Veterans Day, the mystery of what happened to these 11 men has started to unravel, revealing remarkable tale. Let's start at the beginning here of what happened to them that day, at least what we've been able to uncover, you've been able to uncover.
Well, you know, it's really interesting. And as you mentioned, it was this Belgian man, Herman Langer, now deceased, who witnessed this at age 12. And he went on with his life and, you know, was putting together his life and so forth. And it was really later, when he started getting older and retired, that he decided to put a cross at the site of where these men were killed in 1944. So in 1994, he put a cross there. And it was really that incident there that started this snowballing of information coming out, and then the U.S. military was getting involved and allies were getting involved. Now there's a very elaborate memorial there to these men. And of course, since then, the story's filtered back to the United States. And even though the wives and the parents of these 11 men really never knew what happened, their children and nephews and nieces and other descendants do know.
Why did the story end up in, as it's described, as a mystery? Why weren't the families told what happened? There were witnesses.
There were witnesses, and the Army even started a war crimes report. They could never identify the specific unit that did this, and they just marked it secret and stuck it aside. It's a big mystery why they didn't do it. There was another massacre of more than 80 allies on the same day. That took world headlines. So it's still a mystery. Was it not investigated enough because these were African-American soldiers? Was it a smaller number of soldiers? We don't know.
And it's interesting, Jim, as you note in your piece, there was a documentary by Joe Small, financed a documentary he's an amateur historian to tell this story. But Regina, you're quoted in this piece as saying that these people, these men, these 11 guys, your quote was, deserve to be remembered. How did you first learn about this story?
Well, my uncle was a member of the 333rd Battalion, and he was part of that infantry. Mm-hmm. When I was in elementary school, I did a story on this World War II and the story of Anne Frank. And he started telling me about this, and my mother, his twin sister, said, you know, just like many of the other World War II veterans would never talk about what happened in the war, but he was telling me this. And later, as the years went by, one of my colleagues, another physician in Alabama, Dr. Lichtenfield, started introduced me to Herman, and they started trying to figure out what was going on, and it's just unfolded tremendously. I had the opportunity to meet Herman Langer and go there last September. I spoke at the ceremony. I got to sit at the same table that these soldiers ate. I saw the ditch where they were, their bodies were.
Wow.
It was very touching. It's one of the most emotional things. And to be there in my uniform as a 3-star admiral was really significant as an African-American woman.
Absolutely. And Herman Langer's passed away, but as I understand it, he was surprised by how the story had attracted worldwide attention, even with his dedication and what he saw as a 12-year-old boy and telling the story, Jim.
Yeah, his family told me that he really put that cross there initially just to sort of quiet his own conscience and what he had seen. It really never went away. It was a 12-year-old boy, obviously very impressionable. Herman's father, Matthias Langer, was very much a pro-Allies guy during the war. This community was sort of divided between German and Allied sympathies. But his father, this Langer family, was very much pro-Allies, and he watched his father bring these soldiers in, give them food, give them hot coffee without a second thought.
Wow.
And this stayed with him his entire life.
And of course, for your Uncle Buddy, and to know that this story is being told and your desire to have more people hear it, how does it feel today knowing that it has gotten a little bit more exposure?
It's wonderful, but even he told me about the fact when the tanks came and rumbled the earth, they spread out and ran. He didn't know what happened to those 11. I was in part of the AMA, and I'd go to Chicago, and he'd say, "Look up my friend who lives in Chicago," and I never could find him. And it wasn't until we were in Germany, actually in Belgium last year, when I met the son of his friend.
Wow.
And my uncle never knew up until this time that his friends were killed.
Amazing. Well, former U.S. Surgeon General Regina Benjamin, thank you and your family for your service. And Jim, thank you for this incredible report. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.